So when it comes to prioritizing protein in your diet, is there a certain daily numerical protein target that you strive for every day? How does it look when it comes to what you're filling your shopping cart with?
Yeah, it's a really good shot. So I would say, looking at the evidence, today's guidelines state that we should be consuming around 0.75 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight per 24 hours, right? So this equates to around 50 grams of protein for a typical adult male in the UK, which I think is far below what we should be aiming for. If you look at the latest studies and protein researchers over the last 10, 15 years, they've all been sort of aligned around a number that is 50% more than that current guideline of 1.2 grams. So using the same context, this is going to 80 grams for a typical male in the UK. And because it's done by weight, then you can do the math, and I think it is worth doing a little bit of arithmetic for the same for females as well. So it's exactly the same 1.2. If you exercise, if you are over the age of 50, if you're postmenopausal, if you have sarcopenia, you should be looking at a minimum of 1.6. So that's double the current recommendations. And therein lies a bit of a conundrum, because there might be some extra benefits when you go to 2 grams. So for the Americans, I believe that's like per pound. So like 1 gram per pound of body weight. But this is where I think we risk going to the energy imbalance. So if you start consuming that amount of protein, particularly if you're getting it from animal-based products, you risk over-consuming calories, which we know is going to be at the detriment of your metabolism and your long-term health as well. So this is where I think a nice medium is anywhere between 1.2 and 1.6 grams of protein. So when I think about like my shopping list, in the mornings, I will have a high quality Greek yogurt as an example. That generally has about 10 grams of quality protein per 100 grams. So I'll have about 150 grams of that. I'll add some nut butter to that, some tahini. I'll top it with nuts and seeds. I'll have it with blueberries. And if I need something extra on the side, I might have like an egg or two. And then for lunch, I'm either having like leftovers from the night before. That could be a chicken curry, it could be a casserole, it could be whatever eaten the day before. And then, like as an example, last night's meal was a side of salmon that had a bit of gochujang dressing in, a side salad, some chickpeas, and like herbs and spices thrown throughout the whole thing. So that is a healthy, high protein meal because I'm getting enough fiber, so that's 30 grams. I'm getting enough protein for my needs, about 140 grams. So split across each meal, that's looking at about 45 grams per meal. And then I'm also having an anti-inflammatory meal pattern, which is exactly what I talk about in healthy high protein. You want to get that balance between, yes, protein requirements, but not everything at the expense of protein. Just like, the English breakfast example at the start of this, right? Because you could be consuming like 50 grams of protein in that, but are you getting enough fiber? Or if you put the beans on the side, probably not. Are you eating an anti-inflammatory profile? You're getting greens, you're getting herbs and spices, you're eating colorful vegetables? Probably not, apart from the grilled tomato that most people leave on the side. So you want to get a real balance between these 3 pillars. That way you can guarantee that you're eating according to your brain health, your heart health, your metabolic health, and longevity as well.
Yeah, I mean, protein is not the sole variable to define a healthy diet. I mean, otherwise, lean, skinless, boneless chicken breast, you'd just be able to get by on that, and that would not a healthy diet make.
And you know what? There's a really good point you make about skinless, boneless chicken, because I think most people, when they think of high protein, think of exactly that. They think of chicken for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert, right? Like it's just chicken the whole way through. And then if you start tracking calories, all roads lead to that with a bit of whey protein, like for snacks, right? And this is this like joyless, bland way of eating that most people fall into the trap of when they try and improve their health and they try and improve their weight, because every fitness influencer online is telling them to count their calories, make sure they're measuring their food, and ensuring they're getting enough protein. This is high protein And what I'm suggesting is healthy high protein. You want to get the balance of protein and fiber and gut health and inflammation reducing potential of diet. So this is sort of what I want to get the message across. Like, it's not everything at the expense of getting enough protein. It's, you want to get a balance across those different pillars.
I think we're totally aligned there. Like I the value of phytonutrients, I think, cannot be overstated. Like, whether we're talking about plant pigments, even fiber, I think is super beneficial, super important. And micronutrients. I mean, like, that's why I think focusing on the most nutrient dense proteins that you can find, and then also not neglecting foods that are not necessarily high protein, like dark leafy greens, berries, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, we talk about protein, and I think most people think about muscles and meat. And when I think about protein, what I like to explain to folks is protein is just so much more than just our muscles. Granted, it is very important for muscular health, and I think skeletal muscle is definitely having a moment, and I think we need to be a lot more cognizant of that, particularly as sarcopenia, which is recognized as a muscle disease now. In Europe, 7 years ago now, there was a European working group looking to define sarcopenia and actually its causes. And primary sarcopenia, which is the progressive loss of muscle, is primarily related to aging and the disease process of aging. But there are secondary causes as well: insufficiency, poor appetite, malignancy, a whole bunch of other issues that can lead to muscle wasting. But when I talk about protein, I want people to recognize that protein is not just about muscular health. It's about your transporter molecules. It's about enzymes. It's about your cells, your bones, your hair, your nails. Like, protein is basically everything. And the analogy that I use in the book is using Lego. So Lego, the beauty of Lego was that even if you had enough pieces, and you only had 20 different types, you can build anything from a little toy car to like this magnificent Star Wars style spaceship, right? It was just incredible, like the amount of variety, the amount of stuff that you could build from Lego. Well, Lego are like the building blocks in the world of toys, and proteins are the building blocks in the world of biological materials. So using just the same sort of blocks of amino acids, of which there are 20 different types, although there is controversy as to whether it's like 22, 23, whatever. But using those building blocks, you can build enzymes, you can build collagen sheets, you can build bone, you can build muscle. And actually, when you break it down, only 25% of the protein that you consume goes to your muscles. The vast majority of the protein that you're consuming is actually going to all the other biological processes in our body. And the other fascinating thing is we actually recycle a lot of the proteins within our body. In fact, our liver is purposed with that role. We are constantly breaking down protein, particularly overnight in a fasted state, and then rebuilding that, particularly in the morning when we need to replenish this amino acid pool so we can build all these different things in our body. And so I want people to stop thinking about protein in the context of bodybuilding and aesthetics and muscular health, and start thinking about it in the context of hormones, of enzymes, of organs, of bone. These are all things that are really, really important. And I also think one of the things that is driving interest in protein is also this recognition that we should be paying a lot more attention to the menopause, because women, when they go past menopause or through the transition, have a lot of these issues that are in part down to protein misregulation and lack of protein in the diet. Their bones become more brittle, their hormones obviously crash, you lose a lot of skeletal muscle. There are obviously brain health repercussions of that. There are metabolic repercussions which can affect their cardiovascular risk. And I think this message needs to get out to this cohort of people even more so, because they stand to gain the most from it as well. And having so many women in my life that have gone through this process, like, actually increasing protein in their diet has helped them immensely. And I know that's helping women across the world as well. So I think this idea of like protein and meat and muscle building, you know, all that stuff is great, but actually the majority of people who could benefit from more protein in their diet are the older age groups, and particularly women postmenopausally.
It's crucially important. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And also for aging men as well. I mean, men undergo andropause to some extent, right? Like men's testosterone decline, and then all aging humans tend to, I mean, there's this phenomena that's sort of people have been talking about over the past decade, this phenomena referred to as anabolic resistance, right? Like we become generally less sensitive to the amino acid leucine. Our digestion of protein begins to falter as we get older. So I mean, it just becomes even more valuable as you age.
Yeah. There's been these studies actually where they use protein isotopes. And essentially what they can do is put a tracer into like a glass of milk or whatever substrate they're using. And then you drink it and they can see exactly what goes on, how that protein turnover is occurring. And protein turnover is basically the balance between protein building and protein degradation. And what they found is when you look at two different cohorts of people, you've got healthy 22-year-olds and you've got healthy 75-ish olds, the capacity of the older group to build skeletal muscle in this case is far more diminished when you give them the same amount of protein. And it's because of this anabolic inflexibility, or this protein, the inability to respond to the same dose of protein in the diet. It's not to say that this older group can't build muscle. In fact, they've actually demonstrated that, but it just becomes a lot harder. So therein lies two solutions to this issue. One is increase the protein dose to have the same desired effect. And the other thing, which is probably the biggest lever, even though I've written a whole book about healthy high protein, it's about exercise, in particular resistance training. So you want to be able to stimulate that muscle with resistance training to enable it to become less inflexible to the protein dose. So when you consume enough protein, when you do resistance training, you can have that same desired effect on skeletal muscle. It's just obviously a bit harder for older age groups, which is why getting the message out to these folks about getting enough protein in a healthy way is something that I'm just super passionate about. And
also focusing on, at least to some extent, protein quality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. So the idea that protein quality doesn't matter, I think is flawed in a few ways. But I think it can be overstated in lots of ways as well. Because if we just focus on, maybe we should define what protein quality means. So protein quality is defined by a number of different indices and metrics, one of which is bioavailability of the aminos, and another one is the absorption as well. And there are various metrics. There's PDCAAS, there's DIAS, there's a whole bunch of scoring systems there. If we focus too much on these protein quality scores, all roads lead to whey protein, and all roads lead to lean chicken breast, basically, which we want to just be careful of. I'm not saying that those items don't deserve a place in our diet, but I just think we have to be careful about over-interpreting the quality scores.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.